Because I think if you want to raise funding, you want to know what you're going to use it on and not just without a clear sense of exactly what you needed it for. I'm very happy with how it went, how the money was used, and then the results that we got out of that, because they've been phenomenal.
Hello and welcome. I'm Nick Atherton, founder of Morphose. We help businesses at all stages with the funding they need to grow, whether that's early stage investment or finding the right buyers when it comes to for the time for exit. And today we're absolutely thrilled to have Andrea here with us. She's the founder of Paradisefold, which she launched in 2021. We're lucky enough to work with Andrea from a very early stage, helping her find the right angel investors back in 2021 to help her scale her fashion and lifestyle brand. Recently, she's done an incredible job scaling it, but recently she's won a prestigious Marie Claire Hair Award for her Champagne campaign fold. Andrea, you're going to tell us a little bit more about your funding journey today and your startup journey, and give us a glimpse into how the business is doing now.
Great. Pleased to be here. So
can you tell us a little bit about the products at the moment, how they're doing, which are the most successful?
Yeah, sure. So when I launched Paradisefold a few years back, it was specifically to address what I thought was a gap in the market, which was in silk hair wrapping. Because although very many women have been using that to manage all sorts of things related to their hair, whether it's to keep their hair nice and curly, to maintain the style that they wanted to have, whether it's managing hair loss or changes in hair texture through the menopause, for example, or due to stress. Very many women use it, but I thought that there weren't very many brands out there taking it seriously and making a really lovely product that women would want to wear. So what is doing best is that. It's the hair wraps that we've produced. I think we alighted on a product that was in need, that was in demand, and there was a gap in the market catering to it. And it's not a cheap product because it uses silk. It's fairly expensive, actually, I would say, and it's surprisingly doing really well, I guess. It's I'm pleased with it.
So obviously one of the most important factors about Paradisefold is the fact you make a lot of the products almost all in the UK, right?
Yeah, so we have two ranges. We have our core range, which we entirely design and make in the UK, and we have a range that we supply primarily to Boots, and that we developed exclusively for them and supply to them, that we produce in China. And that is because their price sensitivity was a lot greater. And so we needed to produce as a product that was at a lower price point, and a slightly different product. So it uses a little less silk. It's made in China. We still measure all our emissions and offset over 2 times the emissions involved in production and in shipping and so on for that product, as well as our core range. So it's still kind of infused with our ethos, but it is essentially, not made in the UK. But our core range is, and that has been really lovely, because I know that, manufacturing in the UK is shrinking. The size of the sector and the people willing to manufacture here. But I love it because it just means everyone's accessible. We make our tissue paper up north, our boxes in Leicester, our hair wraps in London at a few different locations. And it's great to just be able to rock up and see your suppliers and meet them and talk to them and understand exactly what goes into making something work or not. You can identify problems very quickly and stop them. So I like it. Obviously, it's also creating jobs at home, which is really nice and fulfilling in a way as well. It's been remarkable seeing our journey as a very small peripheral supplier to our factories. Sorry, not supplier, rather client. To our factories and our suppliers, and seeing us grow. And it's been interesting now navigating, now we're a significant portion of their cash flow. Any failure there poses a risk to them and to us, because we're more reliant on our suppliers and they are on us. So the relationship with our manufacturing base is changing, And that's also quite interesting to observe. And it's a challenge for me to try to figure out how I take that forward as we continue to grow. Like, to what extent do we diversify even more so that we're de-risked, versus concentrate on a few very tried and tested and trusted suppliers. So yeah, I love manufacturing here. But as the business grows, it throws up, I think, questions that perhaps any entrepreneur who's end-to-end involved in, the production and then the sales of their product, it throws up some interesting questions that I'm learning a lot about.
Sure. And obviously you took some angel investment back in 2021. Do you feel like you took enough investment? If you had your time again, would you have maybe taken more? Would you have taken less?
Wow. Throwback time. I think we took it in 2022, 2023. In fact, we started working on it together, I think, in 2022. I think completed the round in 2023, something like that. I remember taking, and we had a lot of discussions about it at the time. How much did we take? At what valuation? And I remember taking as little as we needed to. I don't know how through our conversations, like the minimum we needed to design and release a new range, the range that we wanted to release, the cost of production, making sure it's viable, and all the marketing costs associated with that, and so on. So that was the SCIS round. I think it was exactly what we needed, and I'm pleased we didn't take more. I think I had a clear sense at the time that we've proven that there was a gap in the market for the product, and that the business was growing, and that it had a lot of potential. And I didn't want to take more at a lower valuation, which was the valuation that I was able to get at the time. So that was a call, and I think it was absolutely the right call. And I think it meant that it was a small enough round that almost everyone involved kind of was happy to participate without feeling like they were exposing themselves to a huge amount of risk. And it was absorbable by the business, because I think if you want to raise funding, you want to know what you're going to use it on, and not just without a clear sense of exactly what you needed it for. And yeah, I'm very happy with how it went, how the money was used, and then the results that we got out of that, because they've been phenomenal.
Who would you see now, like if you were to raise more money to scale the business, maybe more into America or more into Asia? Because I imagine there's a lot of demand in those countries, given the sort of texture of women's hair all around the world. Who would you ideally see as like a strategic investor? Would you see it? Would you like a fashion kind of based VC? Would you like to target maybe someone who'd sold a similar business to yours in the past, that maybe would be able to invest and advise how you might scale it? How do you see that playing out? Or are you just happy to sort of almost bootstrap as you have been really for the last year or so, right?
Yeah, so right now we don't have a shortage of cash in the business, so we're good on cash. So, which I think is really important. I think one thing that I always wanted to make sure is that the business was profitable and that it could manage its cash flow. I worked for a business that had gone bust. So for me, having seen how that happens was it was an entirely unrelated field, but it was an incredible experience. It was a really difficult one, being part of a business that went through that. But the lessons on very good cash flow management, really forecasting well, the housekeeping stuff that I probably don't enjoy because it's not my background, but I understand are important. So I've got very strong people on the team who do that well. I think that was really important. So if I wanted to raise more money, it would be for, exactly as you implied, something very specific. So is it for growth? And would it be on marketing, for example, in Asia and the US, maybe? In my case, I think it'd be on expanding the range and then scaling that. So now we're going to be testing an expansion of the range this year. And if all goes well, then we'd want to expand it. So in the same way that I'd be very objective driven with what we're raising for, I'd be very objective driven with who should partner with us for that journey. So if we're raising funding for expanding more into fashion wear and growing that business, I definitely would love to have someone on that, involved in that, who's done that, or who understands it and can advise. But I also think there's just a richness and I love surrounding myself with people who know more than me on a range of things, whatever it is. And that could be really anything from like science and technology to fashion to international relations or whatever it might be. And I think having people around you who come from different backgrounds, who do very different things, is super important. So I love that about the current kind of pool of investors. And I think I'd want to maintain that. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, we've watched like other companies that we work with at Morphose, and some of which that they've hired people that have scaled similar e-com businesses and put them on their board, or they brought in strategic funds, like the one I work with, Red Rice, or there's one called Velocity that invests in lots of retail brands and really look to inject quite an aggressive amount of cash, don't they, into founders. Obviously, that comes with its pros and cons, doesn't it? Because at the moment, you have total autonomy on on what goes at Paradisefold. No one can tell you what to do.
No.
And that's a nice place to be. But when you do take the cash, then it all changes, doesn't it? Or certainly it changes to an extent.
Yeah. I am traditional in my approach to running business, I've discovered. I think it's important that businesses have certain values and that they run themselves sustainably. And I don't mean sustainably from an environmental perspective, because I think this is how we talk about sustainability right now. Of course, that's an angle, that's an element. But I look at the brands that I love, and I love heritage brands that have been around for like 100 years, maybe more, like that. Some of them have sold out, like Churches a few years ago sold to Prada, and it's fine. I wasn't hurt, but there's something about a brand that has run itself and kept itself relevant over that long a lifetime that I think is really lovely and shows some degree of responsibility. I don't like we're getting fast into territory that, like, I've only thought about a little bit, and I don't know if what I'm saying is right or wrong. You can tell me what you think. Much more interesting to hear it from you. But I don't like the model of like build it fast, grow it, flip it, and then someone else is left holding the hot potato, and they're going to just like throw a lot of money to grow it, flip it, so they can make a bit, on that margin between what they paid for it and what they're selling it for. I don't think that's sustainable, and I wouldn't want to partner with someone who just wants that.
Yeah, of course. That wouldn't be a natural fit for you or your business.
No. Maybe it would be a natural fit for the business, interestingly, because I think it's an e-commerce business, and to an extent that's the way of e-commerce brands, but it's not a natural fit for me, no. I don't believe in it. I just don't. I think there's something structurally flawed about that approach. And it doesn't, it wouldn't make for a brand that I think will last for a very long time or yield many returns to the person in the end who's left holding it. They'll fold it into something, it'll become something else. What they end up owning will look very different to what's made the brand successful today. So
for you, the brand and the purpose is more important than just the amount of zeros in the bank account?
Yeah, 100%. I like looking at the zeros in the bank account. Or knowing when they're coming. I've come from a background where I've seen, part of my family has had a lot of wealth and part of my family has experienced a great deal of poverty. So having seen the two the two ends of that scale, I really don't care that much for the former. I don't care that much for going back to the latter either, believe me. But I think there's a healthy balance in between. So no, I don't think I'm hugely motivated. I don't think I'm hugely motivated by that. I respect that, and I think that's important. Stability, security. When you're growing a business, you're thinking about what can you afford to pay your staff. Will that give them a stable footing? Same with your suppliers and the rest of it. It's like an ecosystem. So those questions are really relevant. It really does matter, but it's not the thing that keeps me super engaged.
No, that's interesting. We see a lot of founders, don't we, and you and I know a lot, that are just purely incentivized by money.
Yeah.
But we also see a number that seem to me just to be enjoying building the brand, and actually money is almost secondary.
Yeah.
But they tend, in my experience, to be people from wealthier backgrounds that are able to do that.
To step back. Yeah, it is interesting. I think because I've seen both. I grew up on a council estate. Yeah, and so absolutely not like from a wealthier background, but in a way, because of my wider family and their wealth, I was exposed to that. I have a healthy disrespect for money, in the sense that I think it's important to have enough of it to have a good lifestyle and decent way to live and to give yourself options, especially as a woman. I don't know how fashionable or unfashionable it is, but you don't want to be reliant on partners for that sort of thing, I think. But it's not everything. It really doesn't bring you joy. Like, I've seen it firsthand. I'm not chasing that. I think it gives you options, and I think that's what I pursue. It's actually growing my options, giving myself choices in my personal life and my professional life. Like, already I'm thinking, okay, if I take money out of this business, or if we do another fundraising round and someone buys a stake in the business, what would I want to be using it for? Where do I think there are gaps in the market? And I have a few thoughts on that. But yeah, it would go into something that probably has more of a social impact. That's still also a business and sustainable and remunerative, but definitely has more of a social impact.
So what are you able to tell us a bit more about the new ranges that you're obviously some of them on the website?
Yeah, sure. Clothing, so silk, shirts, dresses, trousers. So that's the new range mainly that we're testing this year.
Purely for women, or? Yeah,
purely for women. I think there's an interesting Venn diagram that someone once said to me many, many years ago, and he was talking about his own business and he was thinking about expanding. He said, I think that you change one out of three variables at any one time. So it's the same product, new geography, or it's the same product, same geography, new client, or it's the same client, same geography, new product. And that's what I've gone with. So same market, same geography, so UK, the US primarily, which is where we tend to sell to the most. But it's a new product, it's a slightly different product for the same women.
And so how are the sales to the US? Obviously, it's a turbulent time between, all businesses outside of the US and the US relationship-wise. And there's more announcements coming this afternoon about tariffs. Are you worried about that specifically? Has it impacted Paradisefold at all yet?
No, not yet. We always see some impact based on announcements. So a massive increase in UK sales after this government came in. So on July, it started the two days before this government was elected, interestingly. So I think our sales went up from the night before 70% up to the UK, and then that was sustained for about a week. And then after that election, sales stabilized at a higher baseline than they were before. At a higher level than before the elections in the UK, because our UK customer base in the run up to that election, it was just not doing very well. Most of our sales were to the US. I'd say maybe in the run up to that election, perhaps 80% of our sales to the US. Now they've gone back down to being about 60-65% to the US. Most of our sales are to the US. Have tariffs affected, or would they affect it? I don't know. No. They haven't affected us yet, no. But certain headlines in the press do affect. You can see that. And I think because it's discretionary spend and our average basket size is about $200 plus. So you're if you can wait for it by a week because you're worried about something, you will just hold off. It's not, bread. It's not milk. You don't need it now. You can wait for a week or so. So we do see those small shifts in response to headings. I've been writing a report, so that's where my head is at. In response to headlines. But I don't think tariffs would affect us so much, bizarrely, because we haven't... we considered last year opening a fulfillment center in the US and forward locating some of our stock. Because we don't do that, I think they wouldn't affect us a huge amount. Basically, the women who buy our products, it's mostly overwhelmingly women, they're able to, because the basket size falls under a certain threshold. I think they can import about $1,200 worth of goods without paying customs duty on it. So actually, it just works out for us. And it works out better for us that we didn't maybe open a fulfillment center in the US. It would have been quite expensive, a logistical nightmare. It's hard to have, multiple fulfillment centers at the best of times. If you don't need it, don't add that complexity.
Right.
So I think we'll be okay for now, from what I see, but who knows?
Recently, you won the Marie Claire Hair Award.
Yeah.
Did you see a sort of large boost in sales off the back of that? And what was the publicity in the press like? And it must have given you a huge buzz. I know, as one of your investors, I was so pleased for you. But can you tell us a bit about it?
Sure. The honest answer is I don't know. Intuitively, I think it did give us a little bit of a boost. I'd say it's improved our visibility and our brand recognition a little bit. It means when people search for us, they see that also, which gives a bit of reassurance. It has had many benefits for us, but I don't know that they're as direct as you win the award, therefore you get more sales. And I don't know that for any, especially because we've been growing so fast, it's really hard to understand the causation between one specific change and the effect that has had on the growth. So is it better marketing spend? Is it Google or Meta, or is it Marie Claire, or is it that one partnership that we did with someone, or is it the fact that people see the brand name a bit more in Boots, and then will Google us, and then we'll decide they like something else as well? It's really hard to know. And a friend of mine once said to me when I was lamenting about how do you really measure the effectiveness of your marketing spend and your marketing activity in general. He said, what's the old adage? 50% of your marketing spend goes to waste, but you don't know which 50% it is. And I think that's probably true. It's like, which is the bit that isn't working? And it's really hard to know. But I think the Marie Claire Hair Awards definitely helped. Not in directly increasing our sales, but in contributing to that indirectly. Yeah.
Great.
And obviously it was also such a lovely thing to receive. For a young brand, a small brand, an unknown brand, to have that recognition, for people to like your product. It's really lovely.
So how did it come about? Did they contact you and ask you to enter, or did they pick you up in the press?
No, the former. So someone said, I think you should enter. And we did, just like I think on the last day, because I hadn't been tracking it, didn't know you could. And then you send the product and you, that's it. And then you send two, I think, we send two products of yours and they decide if they like it or not. They go to the judges panel and that's it.
And do you think, sort of your relationship with Boots and things like that, has that improved off the base back that, would you say, or is it?
No, I'd say two separate things.
Yeah.
In terms of our relationship with Boots, and we're so tiny that, yeah, it was quite hard to initially figure out how best to work with them. But I think, I guess what I'm saying with Boots, it just took a while. I think with a company like Boots, it's just about consistency and really trying to understand how they're structured and working with them over time to develop something that works for them. In our case, because we were not, offering our core range to Boots. And that's what made that develop. That was an entirely separate thing. And the conversations with Boots, I'd say, began very soon after the company was launched. But it took years for them to go anywhere. So I'd recommend, if anyone wanted to go into retail, to be ready to, it's going to take a while. It's going to be a slog.
Yeah, I think understanding those delays in any business is so important, isn't it? Like the time it takes to, get a license approved, or, we're finding in one of our investments at the moment that we're doing that, the FCA at the moment, Financial Conduct Authority, are taking 15 months to approve people's applications.
Gosh.
Whereas,
15 months?
Whereas it used to take maybe 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
So obviously that has a big impact on when you're starting something in the financial sector.
Yeah.
Where what you can do and what you can't do, and how much cash you probably need as compared to how much you needed before if you're unable to trade in that time. And I've seen similar things in, in my biotech company, the length of time the American agricultural body
approvals.
Yeah, they take nearly 2 years to approve a new, say, a new sort of technology in the crop and food space, which you probably argue is a good thing, because, you don't want any old, thing. Adding to your food chain is quite important, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the rigorous testing. But 20 months or 24 months is, a huge barrier to entry for companies, waiting to get a license payment.
It's huge. Yeah, it's hugely significant and consequential. But I think that's why my approach is is to create options. So when we launched Paradisefold, I knew that there was a gap, and I knew that it was something that I wanted to do something about. It was an area that I wanted to do something about. And so we started developing a product, but also and a direct-to-consumer channel. And in parallel, we started talking to people like Boots. Well, really to Boots, because those conversations, they were interested fairly fast. So then focused in on them, given capacity constraints. And my team also at the time, it was literally just me. So I think if you're just relying on retail, or if you're just relying on that one approval coming through, and if you don't have other options, it's really very difficult, because then the whole business is held up by that, and you have a single point of failure, which you want to avoid. But a few irons in the fire is never a bad thing, right?
Do you think, would you say you've made any sort of major mistakes in the last 3 or 4 years that if you could turn back the clock, would you say, oh, I wish I hadn't hired that person, or I wish I hadn't spent money on that, or gone down that rabbit hole?
Ooh.
You don't have to name names.
No, of course I wouldn't, except for this person. No. I don't know if it's a mistake, but I wanted to get something out to market very, very quickly to test it out. And maybe had we taken a little bit longer developing the product, and at the beginning we had some sizing issues.
Yeah.
Which resulted, it was really costly. I had to recall a load from our fulfillment center and then resize them, and it was a bit of a nightmare. At the same time, you're going to always get stuff wrong when you're testing a new product. Obviously, you wouldn't want that if you're a healthcare business. You want to do all your testing well before it needs anyone. But when it comes to sizing, everyone's body is different. Everyone's face is different. There's nothing like the mass market to give you feedback on whether you're getting sizing right or wrong.
Yeah.
And it's hard to replicate that before.
And what product was that?
It was the turban, the first turban that we had, actually, which was one of the first 2 product types that we launched. Yeah, that was costly, and it took me a while to get the turban sizing right. Interestingly, small thing, really random. But I'm trying to avoid that now when it comes to sizing for a clothing range. We've had some sizing events, bringing women together and drinking lots of champagne and trying on different clothes and seeing how they fit and fell on different body shapes. I think you'll never get it fully right, because we're creating garments that are in broad sizing buckets, for women 8, 10, 12, 14, whatever these mean, given the amount of variety that you have within that. So it won't work for everyone, but I'm hoping that it will work for a lot of people. And I've learned from that a little bit, because that was a costly mistake. I think there are mistakes like, okay, you've hired the wrong person. They're not a disaster, but they're not the best for a role. And sometimes you think, okay, well, can I upskill them? Is it an attitude problem? Because if it's an attitude problem, then you cannot really change anything. But if it is a capacity or ability, knowledge issue, then you can maybe work on that if you have the time. I don't think it's a big deal. Yeah, of course, some hires have worked out better than others. I think that's normal.
Oh, totally. I mean, even the big companies have to recall things, right? And I sent some Coca-Colas to my daughter for her birthday party, and Amazon sent a note to say they needed to recall the Coca-Colas. After I called her, her and her friends had already drunk them all. So what do you do then? Do you return the empty cans?
Oh, God.
And also, I find a lot of the portable batteries, like the one that
I saw from
you occasionally borrow from me.
Okay.
A lot of those
You're not seeing it ever again.
A lot of those seem to get recalled and have faults, because of exploding batteries,
Thank you for letting me know.
Particularly dangerous obviously on airplanes or, on vehicles. So, recalling products is
that your way of telling me that I have a fire hazard in my handbag? Is that... Okay, noted. I'll send it back to your office.
So if you could target sort of one country to go to that you're not in already, where would that ideally be? Because obviously you've got your Middle Eastern heritage. Would you love to be the leading brand in Lebanon? Would you like to just focus on the Middle East in general, or do you?
Yeah, no, interesting. Ooh, where would we go that we aren't in yet? Look, the EU is a massive market, and because of Brexit, it makes no sense to export there.
Really?
Yeah, it really doesn't. I mean, the customs duty issue, okay, we can absorb it at a certain price range. To an extent we can, but in some countries you're not even allowed to absorb that on behalf of your customer, and so then they're lumbered with a €50 fee at the border that, yes, you might have said you guys are responsible for it, but they didn't really read the small print, and is it really their fault? And then you end up with lots of customer issues. So that is a massive market that it's just because of the headache we're just not addressing right now. Which feels like a real shame. It's bizarre that it's so much easier to export into the US than it is to France.
Absolutely crazy.
It is crazy. So that's one. And I would really also love to have like a really cool partnership in Dubai, probably. I think that market, I think we do really well there.
Yeah, and one of our friends and business partners, Fred Buckley, went to Dubai, didn't he, a couple of years ago. He took some investment for his jewelry brand, Canucci, which has really flown since, working with Boohoo Group.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to talk to him, I think, a bit more about his journey.
I feel like for us in a market like Dubai, you can do the traditional, we're going to advertise through Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google. I feel like something's missing, though, in that arrangement. I don't know what it is. I think it'd be more interesting to have cool partnerships with women who have small communities. Those partnerships tend to work well. So we recently started sponsoring a podcast. That's worked well in terms of marketing. And we know that because of the day that podcast is released, and that is on a like a hump day, a slow business day for us. I think it's a Wednesday. But since we started sponsoring that podcast, it has increased our sales on Wednesdays. So it's an average taken over time.
Yeah, of course.
But I think there are interesting, like, I know I'm just thinking out loud here, I guess, and not really addressing your point about Srinucci and the presence in Dubai. But I think it's tapping to something. There are these small communities that exist on different platforms, whether it's in a podcast group or at a mum's group in Dubai, at a center there, or on someone's micro-influencer page. They're not a huge influencer, but they're a small influencer with a very dedicated community that follows them for a specific reason. That's what I'd like to tap into more, because I think this whole broad paying Facebook and Instagram a lot of money every month for advertising, yeah, it's important to keep doing it, but it just feels, something about that feels just a little bit underwhelming.
Yeah, so sort of back to the roots, targeting people.
Building community, forming partnerships with interesting brands. That's how I'd love to do it. Like, I'd love to go, if we're going into Dubai, I'd love to find 2 or 3 brands that are very similar, do very different things, but similar size, targeting the same type of woman, working with her, or delivering services and products to her, and then partnering with them to go into that market with them. Because then you're not doing this whole like broad net and then trying to narrow down. You're going straight to the woman, who will appreciate or need or want a product like yours.
So the market seems to me to be pretty huge then, if you've got a range of maybe 10 or 20 products.
Yeah.
I mean, because obviously the first product was quite specific, but it sounds like you're going into much broader areas.
Yes, you are. We are. We are going to broader areas. But again, although it's a slightly different product, we're still developing it for the same woman. Mm-hmm. So we know certain things about our Paradisefold woman. We know that she loves quality. We know that she's willing to pay more for it. We know that she likes to buy from small to medium-sized businesses. I still call up like 10, 15 of our closest, our most important customers every year and talk to them about why they buy from us, what they like, what they didn't like, what they don't like or haven't liked that year, and how we can improve. So they love that, and I think it shines and it comes through our emails and the rest of our business. And so, we know her, so I want to provide her with more of the things that she needs or feels she's not getting from the rest of the market. And whether that's like a beautiful pair of trousers or something else, that's how I see that going. But in theory, yes, that could encompass many, many more. That could capture many others out there.
Have you integrated any AI into your business? Are you integrating it into daily life a bit more? Obviously, we're inundated with all the various versions now, aren't we, of ChatGPT and Copilot and OpenAI, but have you found them useful in Paradisefold? Yeah,
very useful and really unhelpful. So useful because there's a lot that you can do with these tools, and especially when it comes to like research, checking things over, whatever it might be. There's some really good tools. ChatGPT is one of them, but there are lots of others that are more specialized on specific things that you might want to use them for. Super unhelpful because when something sounds like it's been written by ChatGPT, it's so dispiriting. I know my team knows that about me. I've given up control of our Instagram to one of our team members, and I initially encouraged her to use these tools, but then you get these like funny turns of phrase that only the AI uses, and it thinks it should sound like a fashion brand when it's telling you like experience the never-ending potential of the silk hair apps. Like, what potential? What are you talking about? Just speak in plain English. So it's this kind of waffly AI speak. It's not the same. And so now what we're doing is we're completely going in the other direction. Like, I don't want to see a first draft from AI. I really don't. It's so soul destroying, and like it's just insincere. That's it. It's insincere. It's not sincere. I'd rather someone speak imperfectly about their experience or why they like something or draft something imperfect, then for the AI to draft a perfectly nonsensical phrase about what it thinks, you know, a wellness brand sounds like, which is not what it ought to sound like.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, mixed bag, I think.
And going back to your e-commerce platform in general, you talk about Paradisefold being in the e-commerce, sector. We've talked to them about valuations of businesses in that sector.
Yeah.
Is that something that drives you at all? Or would you say that that's just a nice to have, the fact that, buyers of companies do like these, e-commerce platforms, and, one day it could be quite a valuable
brand. No, of course. I want it to be successful. I want it to be a valuable brand, for sure. That's cool. And I enjoy the challenge of how to get it there.
Mm-hmm. And so if you were looking for like a more, a more gentle kind of exit, you thought about how that, someone that comes along and maybe doesn't, rip out the back office, fire all your staff and just, want your brand name, have you thought about trying to, identify someone who can, maybe partly, buy the company off you or...
Yeah. No, I not yet, but I'm obviously eventually open to that. Mm-hmm. We will always keep a very lean team. Like right now, we're a very small team still, 3 to 4 people, mm-hmm. and mostly all part-time.
Yeah.
And we don't actually need to grow that much more to scale. Mm. Yeah, I'm not one for building a big company measured in those terms, mm-hmm. in terms of the number of staff. In fact, the leaner the better. But you just have to make sure that there is an over-reliance on 1 or 2 staff, such that if someone gets hit by a bus, you're completely screwed. Mm-hmm. So I guess what I'm saying is there's not much to gut there.
No. You've also been looking at some other brands that people all the time come to you, don't they, for advice on their brand. Some of my friends come to you. But there was one in particular, I think, that you were looking at, wasn't there, that you were considering putting your valuable time into. Have you progressed that at all?
There were 3. There were 3. One person needed help. They came through you. One other was struggling with her business, and it grew tremendously initially, but I think was just overtaken by events more recently that I was also thinking of kind of jumping into. Mm-hmm. And there's a third, a friend's brand, where I think he has a really good product. And it's just a matter of organizing for scale. Because I think at a certain level, there's just a method you can run. Mm-hmm. And if you run it well and you've got a good product, you will succeed. Mm-hmm. So I'm working with one brand, So I've taken a shareholding in that and we'll help him grow his brand. And I'm fairly confident that we can do that. With the first person, I think they were at a much earlier stage in their journey, which could be a really good thing because you can then just mentor them and they put all the processes in place. But really, it was just, I don't think they had enough belief in their product. Mm-hmm. So if you don't believe very much in your product, I'm not here to do that. You have to have that as a founder. If you don't have that, I'm not sure what you have. I mean, I'm sure you thought I was crazy when I said to you silk hair wraps. That's the thing. I'm sure you were like, what the hell is she on? Like, I've never heard of that. I've never seen one. I totally... And that's fine, because it's my job to believe, and it's your job to help me, like with everything else, right? But if the founder does not have the belief, then I don't know where you go from there. Yeah. So that was why I think the first one is on ice until he decides if he really does want to make this work and believes in it. Sure. And then the second one, I just think it might be too late because the founder pivoted so far away and has lost a lot of love and energy and spark for that. Although I think what she has is a really, really cool product that just wasn't... There were a few issues in the market that made things difficult for her. I think I would have been much more helpful a year ago. So now helping one company and plans for potentially launching another of my own.
Great.
Yeah, very exciting.
So obviously you utilised my expertise back in 2022 when we finally closed in 23 for your funding round.
Yes.
And we've worked on a number of other funding rounds for various companies. Can you talk us, through a little bit from what it was like from your side, what you've seen and the value we can bring, with our angel network?
From my perspective, what I like is how easy it was to work with you and the team, and how upfront you are. Because I think I don't think we agreed on everything in terms of. Wait, what do you mean? We agree on everything else except that. No, I'm teasing. I don't think we agreed on. I don't think we agreed on everything in relation to I wanted to push for high valuation. Of course, the founder will always do that, and you'll be like, no, you have to be realistic. Blah blah blah. That's normal, and you just have those conversations, right?
Sure.
And then you. Compromise somehow, and at the end of the day, it's what. Yeah, I don't know. I just really liked it. I enjoyed that process, the back and forth, and the conversations with the investors who then invested. But I also think that, in a way, it's harder for you guys because it's a smaller business in general than the ones that you're used to fundraising for. Mm-hmm. It was at least, or it still is, I guess, although it's larger than what it was. But it's. But it's easier, it's slightly easier for me because it means that it was a smaller sum. People felt more comfortable putting money in, I guess, if they had some confidence in me, which I think most of the investors, they kind of look at the idea, think, okay, yeah, the numbers look right, but then she seems decent, so that is the type of money that we're talking about there. But I think with other businesses, it would probably be much more of a strict, because I've seen that happen with Morphose as well, much more of a kind of structured process, and a lot more hand-holding through these discussions, because there's a lot more at stake for the investor and for the person giving up their equity. So, yeah, I just thought that was, I like how fast it was, actually, comparatively, and easy you made it. Yeah, it was super helpful. I mean, all the stuff that I didn't know about, like SCIS registration, how to do all of that, it was all handled.
To raise money in London than it is in the US, even at the beginning.
Yeah.
Obviously, that changes a lot when the company grows, and there's a lot more cash in America than there is here. But, certainly those early couple of years being based in London is great still for founders, I think, on all sorts of levels.
One thing I wanted to add to your AI question is that we did work with a startup, a Y Combinator startup. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's a big fund in the States. They funded, they invested, I guess, into and incubated OpenAI and a lot of other companies like that. We worked with them on some AI-based tech, the integration of that into our store. In a very practical way, there are still some significant limitations in that technology that make it quite difficult to integrate into a store. I think AI for an e-commerce brand could be a position. You might be exposed to first mover disadvantage, like the disadvantage of integrating that fully into your small store if you cannot afford to fail, will far outweigh the possible benefits because you can't kind of test it in the same way and fail fast in the same way. Yeah. So I'd caution on that, on overly, over integrating into AI too soon before the technology is really there in terms of speed and capability and the rest of it. Because we had lots of conversations about that.
But it's coming fast, and it's no doubt going to affect so many companies. Yeah. I think a lot of them, startups I'm invested in, I'm quite concerned actually that AI will hurt us quite badly. So you have to spend a lot of time on that. I think the AI strategy, 25 and 26, because there's so much that people don't know or understand.
100%. And I think, I don't know if I may mention, I know the edtech business, for example, that you're involved in as well, like education and AI is going to be hugely disruptive. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, and how exactly it will be disruptive, but it will certainly disrupt. For sure. It's different to you're selling a product, you're selling it online. AI can enable that, but it cannot, it's not going to replace anything specific that we're doing, I guess.
Well, look, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We look forward to seeing Paradise grow more further and further.
Okay.
And we'll have you on again, I'm sure. Hear all about
in a few years.
Exactly.
Yeah, after exit. Let's see. Thanks so much.
Thanks.